they were spreading over the hillside, they used a truck to give themselves elevation, trying to engage the animals from 70 to 100 yards away. They were firing on them 2 at a time until they eventually went down. Canavel's tactic was to shoot for the head a couple of times and then move to the body, and they just kept putting rounds into it. I was sick shooting these animals because they didn't ask to be here, he says, and, you know, I'm a cat person. After a while, the 4 shooters ran low on ammo and called for more, and eventually they headed back towards where the body was. The white tiger gone, and nearby they found bolt cutters and a stainless steel Ruger 357 Magnum revolver. The cause of death seemed to be a gunshot wound to the head.
Why didn't they kill the white tiger?
I don't know.
If they are told to eliminate all of the animals, why didn't they kill the white tiger?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they were afraid they couldn't put it down fast enough for it to not attack them.
I don't know. That's weird. That's a weird detail to let it run away.
This whole story just sounds like a bad fucking movie. One detail Sheriff Lutz chose to release to the press at the time was that there was a sizable laceration on Thompson's head that was consistent with a big cat's bite. Deliberately or not, he seemed to imply that Thompson's body was, aside from the gunshot wound, suggesting a barrel placed under the mouth, otherwise fairly untouched. And it wasn't quite that straightforward. He had been dragged, says Canavel. You're able to tell the body that he had laid at one spot for a while, and then it looked like he was dragged. It looked like by an arm, and his pants and stuff had been pulled down, and then he had been chewed on. There were also pieces of raw chicken scattered around nearby the body. Apparently, he wanted the animals to eat him. What kind of headspace do you have to be in to want to go out that way? I mean,
he probably didn't want to kill all the animals himself, but he probably knew that if they ate him, then they would have to go down as well.
Yeah, this is a sad fucking episode. No other law enforcement agency in the world has faced this. It's not like there was a manual, says Deputy Lecoq. Other things happened, but this is never going to happen again. All evening it went on, the slaughter. Encounters with animals that would normally have been remembered for a lifetime were forgotten moments later as the next came along. Somehow no one was hurt. Given the situation, 50 animals, most large and potentially aggressive carnivores set loose towards the day's end, this could have gone much worse. Up near the houses where no media could see them, the officers laid the dead animals out in rows by species so they could ease the counting. This is where the famous heartbreaking photo was taken. It remains unclear who took it, but all the bodies are laid together in early morning light. Whatever people knew of the real situation and the hard decisions that had to be made, when you saw this image, all you could think was, this is a photo of a place where dozens of big cat animals were mindlessly slaughtered. That's fucking heavy.
It is heavy, but it also, it's not the animal's fault.
Exactly.
But the man whose fault it is dead already.
But what gets me is, like I said earlier in the episode, this sounds like it could have been prevented.
Yeah, if they had taken the right steps to actually shut him down, they absolutely could have prevented this.
Yeah. So by the time the Columbus Zoo teams had arrived at the holding area, it was dark. They were told it wasn't safe for them to try and tranquilize anything because so many animals were circulating and the others were scattering outward. Even when a tranquilizer dose is successfully administered, it needs about 10 minutes to take effect, and there's great care required to establish it after it's done so. This was considered to be impossible with so many animals running around. When the zoo people returned to the site at 5:30 the next morning, they had been joined by Jack Hanna. Hanna's famous for his TV shows and his appearances on shows like The Letterman, and he had established his career at the Columbus Zoo. And he remains to this day the director of Emirates. The previous day, he was doing an event at Penn State, and although he had just had knee surgery, he drove straight there, 100 miles an hour. Zanesville held a special significance for him. He went to school near there and enlisted in the army there, and spent his honeymoon nights there. Birdcage. The house itself was disgusting. It was almost horrific smell, said staff. Garbage and feces, garbage bags filled with garbage that were knocked over, and the filth. I saw a pair of pants on the ground, and the belt was twine. It was very sad to see how someone had clearly lost their mind. There are no sane people that live in those conditions. So basically, that's it. They end up burying these dead animals, and they blame it all on Thompson and his lack of initiative to let the sheriff's department know and the Columbus Zoo and surrounding agencies know the amount of animals and how dangerous they were on his property.
Even though they had evidence and actually admitted to going to his house and making examinations of what he had.
Yeah. So Ohio legislation freaked the fuck out because we had very lapsed exotic animal and big cat laws in Ohio. That's been changed since then, from what I understand, but still, with the right permit, basically anyone can get one of these cats. You have to have it under the guise of like a zoo or a petting zoo, and that's really the only like legal requirements to own these animals.
See, down in North Carolina, it's extremely difficult. I don't even think it's legal at all to have an exotic animal.
Yeah, I know it's very, like I said, it got more difficult here, but it's still possible.
Yeah, I don't even think it's possible down there.
Yeah, so I want to know, Brittany, this is a sad episode, but I know we had talked about this a few times. People wanted us to talk about this that hadn't heard the story. What's your takeaway from this?
My takeaway is I think in the moment, the police handled it correctly. I do not think they could have saved the animals in the moment, regardless of the background.
Yeah.
I think that this definitely could have been prevented, like other topics that we talk about when it comes to the police officers. You have an inspection that was done to actually say, like, hey, these animals are living in unsafe conditions. They're not being taken care of properly. So right off the bat, they should have been taken away.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I mean, think of it like a kid. If DSS comes to your house and says that you're unfit because they're not being taken care of, they don't have X, Y, and Z, what they need, they take your kid.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you do that with a dangerous predator?
Yeah, and what gets me is the sheer amount of these animals. I mean, just imagine. I mean, you and I drive these roads in the dark by ourselves all the fucking time. What are we gonna do if we're out? You know, we see something interesting on the side of the road. We hop out to look at it, and we look over and there's a grizzly bear, a tiger, and a lioness, and a cougar charging. Like, we're going to die.
Yep.
Flat
They're
out.
lucky no one died.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I can't stress that enough, that I think law enforcement did the best job they could given the circumstances.
Talking about in the moment when they actually were released.
Yeah, but I am going to stand firm before we leave here and say that I think this could have been prevented, and the fact that it wasn't a simple wellness check after that letter. When Thompson said, you'll know when I know, a simple wellness check potentially could have prevented this entire thing.
Absolutely.
Combine that with what I don't believe in Big Brother having a lot to do with our day-to-day lives. I really don't. But I think strict legislation does need to be in place. From what I understood at this point in time, there were more background checks and safety checks done to own a firearm than there were to own these 52 animals.
I was going to say, what's the point in owning an exotic animal? What is the point besides it just being a trophy? Are you really going to give it a better life than it could have in the wild?
Yeah, at this point, we're going to get into questions that I don't think either of us can really answer, because never in our wildest dreams would we say, you know what, I think we need a tiger for the backyard.
No.
Never. So before we go, Miss Brittany, do you have anything else you want to add about this? It's an incredibly sad story. This is a harder episode for us to record, but ultimately people wanted to hear it. And it's a story that needs told, because before this, did you even hear about this?
No.
I really thought with the rise of Tiger King, this story would be making the rounds again, and we'd be talking about the importance of this legislation and the importance of doing safety checks.
Yeah, actual background checks.
Yeah, I mean, if you have nothing else to add, I don't think I do either. I think we're gonna have to add this horrible, horrible instance to our never ending, but our always growing
Tales from the Dark.
Only one enemy is left. 1 minute left, my friend. Your ally is back in the fight. And this is the game. Very good. You have doctrine of this city will